If the internet is representative of the society at large, it really seems that atheism has gained quite a lot of traction in recent years. Being an atheist has almost become a prerequisite for being a supposed logical and free thinker. Belief in a god, they say, is irrational. I am here to argue that believing a god exists is not irrational. In fact, I will demonstrate how it is rational to believe in a god. Stay with me and follow close, because I am most likely going to explain it in a way you have not heard before. First, let's define what we're talking about here. When I say God, I am not talking about Allah, and I'm not talking about Jehovah. I use God as a general term for a being that exists outside the confines of our physical laws, that has the power to create. In other words, something supernatural that can poof things into existence. It is not made up of atoms, it does not reflect light, it has no mass, and it is not subject to time. It is something completely outside our physical system, as much as a computer programmer is outside of Super Mario World. Now, in order for me to demonstrate my argument, let's have a thought experiment, shall we? We know our universe is governed by strict, constant physical laws. When you throw a ball in the air, it goes up and comes back down, and we can model this mathematically, precisely, every time. Our physical laws include physical constants. These include the gravitational constant, Planck's constant, and the speed of light in a vacuum. Let us consider the gravitational constant in this thought experiment. For those who need a quick reminder, this constant is a factor in the gravitational force between any two objects with mass. Okay, the gravitational constant is roughly 6.67 times 10 to the minus 11 meters cubed per kilogram per second squared. Let's imagine we doubled the gravitational constant. How different would the world be? It absolutely would make a huge difference. Our galaxy, and certainly Earth, as we know them, would certainly not exist in their current form. I think that's safe to say. Okay, how about we instead only changed it by 10%? That's a much smaller effect than doubling it, but that would still have a huge effect on the universe, and our galaxy, and our planet. Alright, some of you may be thinking this is sounding a whole lot like a commonly argued, though very flawed, creationist argument. But I promise, it's not, so bear with me. Now back to our thought experiment. What if we changed the gravitational constant by just 1%? Yeah, I think even that would certainly completely change the makeup of our galaxies. Let's keep going. What if we changed it by a millionth of a percent? What if we changed it by a quadrillion billionth of a percent? What if we changed the gravitational constant by such an infinitesimal amount that no measurable difference in the structure of our universe resulted from this change, even after a trillion millennia? Well, in this case, the universe with all its galaxies would be essentially identical to what we have now. The change in the gravitational constant was definite, though infinitesimal, yet there would be no identifiable change to the structure or behavior of our universe. Everything would be exactly like the universe we currently live in. The result of this thought experiment is this. We found two values for the gravitational constant that created a universe exactly like ours. These values are infinitesimally close to each other, yes, but they are absolutely distinct, different numbers. Now, the nature of numbers is such that there are an infinite number of numbers between any two numbers. For example, there are an infinite number of numbers between 0 and 1. There's 0.1, 0.08, 0.05124, 0.849138878, etc. You can add numbers after the decimal forever, and they are all real, distinct numbers. Likewise, since we found two values of the gravitational constant that result in an equivalent universe, there are an infinite number of values between those two values. Therefore, there are an infinite number of possible values of the gravitational constant that result in an equivalent universe. This same thought experiment can extend to every other physical law in our universe. This means there are an infinite number of sets of physical laws that would result in the universe we see today. Okay, interesting. An infinite number of possible physics equations exist that could result in the exact same universe we see today. So what? What does this have to do with God? What that means is our scientific laws are arbitrary. An infinite number of varieties are possible that would result in an equivalent universe. What does this mean? Well, either an infinite number of universes exist with an infinite variety of scientific laws, with nothing pointing towards where any of it came from, or there exists a being with more power than a human, and it decided to create something. It chose our precise physical laws. So, which of these options is the rational one? I don't know. They're really the only options, and there's no way to prove either, so they're both rational. You can't really say one is more rational than the other. One is belief in a God, one is belief in infinite infinities. There really is no other option I can think of. Look, I get it. An invisible guy in the sky creating everything. Yeah, it sounds ridiculous. But so does everything coming from nothing for no real reason, and so does the existence of meaningless infinite infinities. When you're talking about the origins of the universe, any possibility will sound ridiculous because we have no experience with such a thing, and it's completely beyond our comprehension. Don't let something sounding silly to you keep you from thinking about it rationally. Alright, in closing, I hope this made sense and demonstrates to you that belief in a God is not necessarily irrational. It's fascinating to ponder our amazing universe, and it's important that we not blindly form biases and join sides, but rather think logically and neutrally. I'm happy to respond to any questions or comments you may have, and I appreciate you listening. Thanks.